So the camera turned on mid-drink of the tea. Sorry about that. So thank you very much for coming to Restorative Flow tonight. We're going to be focusing on a bit of digestion, which usually means some folds and some twists. So there's a lot of stuff out there talking about yoga for this and yoga for that. And I would like to make a really important disclaimer that yoga is not a medicine in that way. That might be controversial to say because it has so many health benefits to it. But what I mean by that statement is that we don't want to look at going into the process of a yoga practice by ways of trying to fix something. Because oftentimes, if we kind of go into yoga going, I'm going to work on this today, it can really mask something that may show up in yoga. So yoga is more of an open discovery, and you kind of allow things to arise. And that being said, there can be a central idea, and we can do things that kind of go a certain direction that might be more beneficial for X, Y, or Z. But that's not really the main process. It's more of an exploratory, open thing. So that being said, we're still going to focus on a bit of digestive stuff. So yoga really helps with digestion. It has some scientific evidence to support IBS, to support kind of a whole host of issues. And the way that it does that is not only by directly stimulating the pathway of digestion from gestation to intake to the juices breaking it down and blah, blah. But also it can support digestion in the sense that it can be help us to be more proactive and more mindful in our approach to what we're intaking. And it can also help calm the nervous system and the emotional mental state of us. And by calming that system down, we can also calm down some inflammation and some hyperactivity in the body that doesn't need to be there. That just kind of hurts the process of digestion. That being said, safety disclaimer, make sure that in any of these postures that we go into, you go into them very slowly. You go to the depth that feels good. Once it stops feeling good, you need to leave the pose. If you feel any sharp pain, you need to walk away from that. If you feel any dull aching sensations, you need to walk away from that. In fact, if you feel any uncomfortable stuff, make an adjustment. An important note is that in a yin yoga class, which is what this is, we're going to be holding these poses for several minutes. And it's very important to move out of them very slowly. If we come out of them very quickly, that can kind of induce a bit of alarm into the body and that jerking sensation, which can not be helpful at all. So definitely want to avoid that. So without any further ado, we're going to go and get right into just a few things before we get into the yin practice. So first, I want to show how moving too quickly can hide certain things of how we're moving the body. So if you are sitting on a bolster or a block, I would go ahead and remove that and try sitting directly on the floor. Also, if you don't have any bolsters or blankets nearby, I would recommend getting those because you don't need them, but they will come in handy. So since we're going to be doing a lot of twists and we're going to be holding a lot of twists, we need to understand what those are. So first, just take your legs out. Simple enough. So we got three little big parts of our body for movement. We got this head that turns and goes all the way around, all these directions. We got this rib cage and this torso that does all this stuff, forward, back, circles. And we got a pelvis that does all that as well. And they're all connected by the spine. So, but let's test our ability to twist without having other stuff turn on. So a twist is when the rib cage is going a different direction than the pelvis. So here my pelvis is forward, my ribs have turned towards the right. I am now in a twist. Okay? But what often happens is when we twist, other stuff in the body flexes and turns on and tries to get involved in a conversation where it wasn't invited. So we're going to try to first understand twists more properly, and then we'll go into the DPN. Okay? So from here, all I want you to do is just move your rib cage left to right. Just give it a go. Okay. Now take a look at your legs. What are they doing? They're moving everywhere. They're probably shaking a lot. Now I want you to slow down your shaking of or moving of the rib cage left to right, and get your legs to stay really still. Okay. Now notice you have to go much slower to keep the legs not moving. In fact, if you speed up, it becomes almost impossible. And that's for many reasons. So you can go and stop your twisting. Again, the whole body's connected. So when we're moving the rib cage, that movement's going through the spine and it's echoing out as well. But what can often happen is that the back can be a bit flexed and be tight. We can arch the pelvis back or curl it in, or we flex. And what happens is instead of the rib cage just freely moving to one side, allowing the pelvis to stay central and neutral, that flex that connects the rib cage to the pelvis in the back kind of tethers them together a bit too strongly. And then when we turn the rib cage, and if you notice, if I turn right, my left leg kind of comes up. Just kind of because it turns in, and that's the pelvis getting involved in the conversation. So what I want you to do is just bring your hands to prayer, and let's isolate how we can twist without having the low back come into the picture, without having the pelvis do anything. So just come here, hands at prayer, start to breathe through your nose. Just slow it down. Okay, and let's gauge our ability to twist without other parts needing to come into the conversation. So just inhale where you are. And I want you to exhale, twist to the right, not to your fullest expression. I want you to twist until you feel kind of a moment where, oh, my legs want to come in, my back is doing something, my thighs are flexing, and you stop there and pause. And then isolate kind of your mid back and your ribs and see if you can continue to twist a bit more towards the right without the low back flexing and arching, without the pelvis tilting. Basically, the lower half of the body just stays very lazy and very still. Now, go as far as your rib cage feels comfortable, and then turn your head more towards that direction. And now you're really in a full twist. One more thing here. I want you to check in with the weight in both the left and the right glutes. Is it even? So it should mostly be even. Oftentimes when we twist, we can end up leaning in the direction of the twist, or we can arch away from the twist. Try to have the weight even in the glutes. It's going to feel different in the distribution, like you might feel a bit more weight in the front of the glute versus the back, but the amount of weight should be about the same. One more inhale. And then exhale, unwind to the center. Pause here for 3 breaths and feel the spine, feel the sides of the body, and note where that twist was. And then on an inhale, stay where you are. And on the exhale, twist to the left. Only go as far till you feel a lot of resistance, and you pause at the point of resistance. Try not to push through. We are so used to forcing the body to do things, to get up when we don't want to. We force the body to work longer than it needs to. Maybe tonight's practice can be about letting the body reveal itself to you. Good. And then go ahead and carry your twist a bit more towards the left now that you feel comfortable. You've isolated your rib cage and your pelvis can stay mostly neutral and the legs are mostly chilled out. If you had a tiny movement in the legs, that's okay. I do as well. It can be quite difficult to isolate the rib cage irrespective of the rest of the body because, as I said before, the whole body is a closed system. So everything, any movement, especially related to the spine, is going to echo throughout the entire body. Maybe begin to turn your head that direction a bit further. Go to your full twist. And keep your breath. Notice if you've begun to create a shallow breath. And then slowly come back to the center. Good. So from here, if you were on a bolster or you want to be on a bolster, I would go ahead and sit on it now. I'm going to sit on a little bit. What we're going to do is just we're going to fold towards one leg, but we're going to be there for a few minutes. There are many ways to get into this posture. For me, I definitely want my pelvis elevated a little bit. We'll be there for about 2 or 3 minutes. So get something that'll work. And how this is going to work, it's pretty simple. I'm going to go towards my left leg. You can go towards your right first. It's not too bad. But just bring in the opposite foot. Okay. And then before we turn and lean over, locate that your pelvis is going straight forward. Okay. Tall spine. And then, and sometimes it's even easy or better to bring your hands to prayer and then isolate your rib cage and turn towards that leg. Notice what's happening in the opposite knee. It probably wanted to come up. Try to relax. It doesn't need to get involved. The pelvis doesn't need to lift up there either. If you felt a big adjustment, then you need to come a bit away. Okay? And then from here, you're just going to inhale and reach your palms up. Exhale, reach towards the foot. If you can grab it easily, go ahead. If you have to strain a bit to grab it, please don't grab it. And try not to bring your head all the way down. So this just causes neck strain. I want you to just try to keep that rib or the rib cage or the sternum in direct alignment with the leg. And let your breath on the exhale slowly take you further down. So an inhale is kind of like a stabilizer. You might feel a slight lifting sensation. And an exhale is I will allow gravity's gentle lull. Let me go down maybe a fraction lower. As we're in this position, if it's possible, think about your abdominal muscle here, all of them, and just kind of flex them a little bit to where you feel like your pelvis kind of curls in a little bit. And it's almost like the chest wants to curl down a little bit further. Keep that other knee out. We have just a few more breaths here. Maybe you walk a bit further towards that foot. Keep that breath fluid through the nose. Let's try to get all aspects of the benefits of this practice here. So we're definitely targeting the twists and we're targeting the intestines, we're targeting the gut. And so we're bringing some stimulation there, which will definitely support us in digestion. But another part of this practice is breathing, calming the nervous system, stabilizing the breath, and kind of moving a bit out of that stressed state or that anxious state, which causes inflammation. which also causes poor choices. So go for the targeted area through the asana, go through the preventative benefit through the breath. Maybe notice for the last few breaths you can go a little bit slower, but not through any flexing action, but through just a gentle, you know what, I can fall a bit. Good. And this very slowly come back up. Bring the chest forward and pause there for just a moment. When we go into these yin yoga poses, it's a kind of a yin state when we leave them. And we want to feel that tingle that kind of shows up in parts of the body, that stillness, that vibration. Let that live for a moment before just jumping over to the other side. Part of this is becoming in tune with that experience, so your body can kind of record it and remember it, and then maybe later you can invoke it again when you need it. And then go and switch very slowly to the opposite side. Take your time. Remember how we come into this. Pelvis straight forward. I'm going to go ahead and bring my hands to prayer and turn this way. And the reason I'm using prayer is that it helps me feel where the center of my chest is and the center of my rib cage and the sternum going straight forward. Oftentimes we can turn towards that foot and we can reach towards it. But when I look at my sternum, I'm still pointing a different direction than my leg. So try to get towards the leg. If you can't, that's okay. And then when you want to, you can inhale, maybe reach your hands up. Maybe you fall forward. However you want to get down to this position. There's no magic here. But make sure that you're trying to get the ribs same direction as the leg. Let the opposite knee chill out. Let the opposite thigh chill out. And then let the thigh you're on chill out. Keep that lovely breath through the nose. Yin yoga, a good breathing technique is just a mildly active breath. And what the hell does that mean? Just basically you're purposely breathing, so you're purposely pulling air through the nose. You're feeling it go through the nostrils and through the throat, filling up the lungs and the belly. And then you're purposely exhaling it out through a controlled manner, not a sigh, and pushing it out and feeling that opposite sensation of the breath coming back out, moving back out. And maybe you also feel the sensation of the inhale ballooning, opening, and that kind of echoes throughout the muscular system. And then the exhale, you feel that moving back in, compressing in. Maybe you decide to go a little bit deeper because gravity is giving you a nice lull. If you engage your abs just a little bit to curl the chest just a little bit in. So I want to unpack that statement that there's no magic here a little bit more. What that means is that this is not meant to be a stale, sacred, stiff practice where you have to do things a certain way. Yoga and the asanas have changed so much. And one of its founding fathers has said that it's a living practice that kind of takes the shape in different cultures and different bodies and different pathways. And most of what we see in yoga today was developed in the 19th century, even though the ethos is about 4,000 or 5,000 years old. So if you feel like there's something you would kind of like to do, and the body's calling out for it, then by all means. And slowly, slowly come back up, stacking each vertebra of the spine towards the ceiling. Bring the chest forward, just relax your hands. Sense where you felt that in your body. Sense those echoes. Okay, very good. And just slowly bring your feet to a butterfly position. Grab onto your feet. So what this is we're actually going to forward fold. And this is kind of more of an integration because we were heavily on one side, we're heavily on the other side. And it's nice to do one pose that kind of unifies them. And to get out of a bit of a twist into just the in pose. So interlace your fingers around your feet. If you'd like to make a steeple grip, do that. If you don't know what that is, oh well. Inhale where you are. Bring the chest comfortably up. Relax those knees, relax those hips as you exhale, and gently let yourself fall forward. Engage the abs again. So you're curling the pelvis in. Go and let your chin come a bit down. And in your own mind's eye, I want you to envision the curvature of your spine from the left or the right hand side. So it's as if you're looking at your side profile. And if you could draw a line of what the spine looked like, do that. And then think of that line. And think what side feels really active or flexed? And what side feels very long? Like, does the back side of the line feel long? And maybe the front side feels very tight? Maybe you can curl a little bit further if that feels okay. Keep breathing fluidly. Notice that you feel this nice stretch along the back body, especially if you inhale very fully. And if you exhale, push everything out. You almost feel a bit of deepening movement. For the last few breaths, check in with your neck and make sure you're not flexing the front side of your throat to bring your chin in, causing a bit of stress on the back of the neck. Just allow your head to drop, like it's just falling, and just gravity that's bringing it down. And slowly come back up. Take time, take time. Feel the end state. So maybe it's comfortable to cross your legs here, or you can stay right where you are. And observe. So for me, I sense that because that forward fold, I felt that compression on the front side of my torso. And now I'm feeling that a lot of blood has kind of rushed into that area when I elongated the muscles. There's so much more going on in that compression, which I'll go over in a bit when we get into one of the twists. Good. And from here, just bring your hands behind you. Just a little bit of a reversal. So lean back onto your palms. And then first find your straight spine here. So since you're leaning back, your pelvis should probably tuck in a bit to get that straightened spine sensation. You don't want to feel like your pelvis is tilting away. So keep the abs mildly engaged here. And then once you got your pelvis in a good position that feels comfortable, the abs are minorly engaged, I want you to focus on your rib cage. And this time, we're going to flare the rib cage towards the ceiling. So you know where your sternum is. Imagine if you wanted to point your sternum just more towards the ceiling, but without arching your low back. That can be tricky, so go very slowly. Do not let speed rob you of this experience, nor let it allow other things to come into play that don't need to. And just slowly begin to bring the rib cage flaring towards the ceiling. So the upper back and the mid back is turning on for this. But can you keep your low back totally chill? And if your head can fall back, let it fall back. And if you want to move your palms in any different way, so I feel like I might lean back a bit more, bring my shoulder blades back a bit more, and get my rib cage even higher up because that feels nice. Good. And then very slowly come back to a cross-legged seated position. And try to keep that nice length in the spine that we just learned. Okay. And then from here, we're going to come to another deep twist. And this is going to affect the hips as well, which is wonderful. We always have some hip stuff going on. And it has a weird name. It's called Lord of the Fishes pose. I don't know why off the top of my head. But Google's available. So anyway, so what you're going to do, and this is kind of tricky, is so I have my legs crossed. I'm going to bring my left knee towards the center, going towards forward. And I'm going to bring my right foot over to the other side of my left thigh, so to the left of the left thigh. Okay? Then my right hand is going to come behind me. And this already might be a bit much. You can make any adjustments you need. If your foot's up, that's okay. If it's not touching the ground, that's okay. If you decide to come into like this, that's okay. Just wait to see how I get into the pose, and then you can decide where you go with it. But what will happen is you'll bring up the left elbow and try to connect it to the right edge on the right thigh. And then you're just going to keep a tall spine, try to keep the right hip down. And then now that we know what our rib cage can do and how to isolate it, I just want you to turn the rib cage towards the right. And again, your low back should be super chill here. Now here, you can do so many things. If you want to try to stack the right knee on top of the left knee. You can get that as well. Turn the rib cage more. You can also bring your palms down. Just kind of hold yourself up there. You can also just let that left arm lazily hang out. Or you can also just hold on to the left or the right leg with the left arm. Doesn't quite matter here because we're not going to be here for too long. This is just the deep twist. It's also going to open up the external hip. And a bit of an internal hip on the other side if it's tight for you. Remember, keep the abs mildly caged. So that's not to give your abs a nice workout, but it's to keep a nice long spine, which is because it's just going to make everything more comfortable in general. Good. Slowly unwind. Pause. I'm going to keep my right leg on top of my left and pause there because I like that feeling right now. If you need to unravel your legs, do so. Okay, we're going to slowly switch to Lord of the Fishes on the other side. So right knee down, kind of towards forward or towards the same direction as your spine or your the sternum. Good Lord of the Fishes. So the left foot comes to the right side edge of the right thigh. And notice my left hip lifted a lot in here. In order to bring my left hip down, my left foot comes up. That's okay. I might be able to get it more over there, but it might need to stay a bit lifted. Okay, we're very different left and right sides of the body, especially in the hips. So this is what it looks like for me. I'm going to turn to the left. First, I'm going to see if I even can hook my elbow on. I can. It's okay. Yeah, so in this, I feel more comfortable if I just grab my left knee. And then I isolate my rib cage, and I'm going to slowly turn just the rib cage towards the left. And I am going to attempt to bring my left hip down by just bringing a bit more weight to the left glute. It's just not wanting to do it today. That's okay. We're in yin. I'm not forcing anything. Find wherever you want to go with this. As long as it's a twist, that's all that matters. Actually, as long as you're comfortable, it's all that matters. Keep your breath here. And maybe even experiment with the breath, and you can do a bit of contained breathing. Let's do a couple of those together. That might be fun. So inhale, fill up your lungs, and I want you to hold it for about 5 seconds. And then exhale slowly everything out. And stay empty for about 5 seconds. So really push it out with your abs. Come back into supportive breathing or the mildly active breathing. And if you notice that you could twist a little bit further at the bottom of that exhale, then go ahead and do so. Okay, great. Slowly unwind. Okay, very good. So from here, we're going to come into fish pose for a few minutes, and then we're going to do our seated twists or reclining twists, sorry. Fish pose, yeah, one of my favorites. So In fish pose, I'd like it to be supported, so it means that there's a bolster under your spine. If that's not available to you, you can easily just take your blankets. You take one blanket, fold it up to where it's a couple inches in thickness. Then you take the other blanket, try to get it lengthwise, about the length of your torso, and then roll it to where it comes kind of like a little foam roller-ish. You want it kind of a thick circle. That's good, yeah. And then it's going to go right on top, like so. Put that lengthwise onto the mat. Put it towards the base of your spine first. Have a sip of tea if you need it. And then make sure you have your other bells and whistles by. So make sure you got some blankets nearby and some pillows if you need it. Because what you're going to do is just recline back onto your bolster or your homemade bolster. And choose where you want your... Actually, no, we're going to guide the hips here. So I want you to bring your feet to the mat in constructive rest. Okay. And pause right here. Decide if there's anything else that you need. So for me, my head is slightly coming off of my bolster. And I like that because I'm getting this sensation of falling back. And it's that type of falling back is going to help elongate my spine just a little bit further. But if you find it's too much, you grab a pillow, just put it right underneath your head. It's whatever you want here. If you find that your pelvis would feel better if it was also on top of something and lifted, then get that. But then what we're going to do here is we're going to wash rag our knees, but we're going to try to not let our low back do any of that work for us. So legs in constructive rest, which means feet are onto the mat, knees bent, thighs are parallel, left to right. Even take a look. Sometimes they bow out or they come in. And then from there, both my knees, I'm going to go to the right. My pelvis is going to twist, so it's going to lift off the left side, but I'm only going to go a little bit at a time because I don't want my low back to flex here, nor do I want to fall off the bolster. Okay, so you're going to go left to right, but you're only going to a degree that your spine can stay on your bolster. Now, if anything sharp shows up, especially if you have low back pain, it is a possibility in this pose as we move the knees left to right. If that shows up, your distance just needs to lessen so you don't move the knees as much, or you need to just be stable in the legs and not move them at all. Good, then pause back at the center. Adjust if you need to adjust. There we go. And then heel toe your feet out to the edges of the mat. And this time, this is a bit of somatic movement, but we're going to move it more fluidly. Locate your left knee in your head. And then just bring your left knee in towards the right foot, just far enough to where you're feeling a bit of resistance. And then bring the left knee back up towards the ceiling. And then bring the right knee down towards the left foot. Back up. And just keep switching left knee to right. Try to keep your pelvis mostly stable here. Good. And the next time the left knee is towards the right foot, go as far as you feel comfortable and stay there for 3 breaths. And then bring the left knee up. And once it's back to its original position, you bring the right knee down towards the left foot. Go as far as comfortable. Pause for 3 breaths there. Notice if one side was much easier or more difficult than the other. And then bring the right knee back up. Then come to a butterfly position with the feet and the knees. So knees go out wide, feet together. Now we're going to do a little exercise with our arms here. So from here, I just want you to feel with the palms down, or I'm sorry, the palms are more towards your knees. So they're kind of by the sides of the body, but out. Notice how this feels in the spine and the back, kind of in general. Then I want you on an inhale, reach your palms just straight towards the ceiling. And then on an exhale, let your palms go back like you're reaching behind you. And press them, let them fall down wherever they can fall down. And notice your back here. Probably feeling a lot in the shoulders and the trapezius muscle. But this causes the rib cage to kind of flare a bit more up and a bit more out. If this feels good, stay here. If it felt better with more of a straight spine, then bring the palms back down towards the legs. We have about another minute here. Sense gravity opening everything, pushing everything out, left to right, all through the center of the body out. And before we come out of this pose, if your arms have come up, go ahead and bring them back down to the sides, left and right, palms facing up. We're going to try a little bit of craniosacral awareness technique. So what I want you to do is just with your head, you're going to lean your head or turn your head to the left, come through center, turn to the right. But I want you to keep your spine and back, everything stays in the bolster here. But can you feel this movement echo through the spine all the way down to the tailbone? It takes a lot of focus and it takes a lot of relaxing. But think that your entire spine has thousands of fibers connected to it that are interconnected to other fibers that are interconnected to the whole system. And especially across the spine, we have so much sensory information. And then pause in the center. Take the hands to your knees. Ever so slowly bring your knees back up to constructive rest. Don't bring them to touch, so both feet to the mat. Thighs parallel. If you want them to touch and you need that, go right ahead. But sometimes that can be a bit too much. Okay. And then from here, you're going to move your little bolster or homemade bolster away from you and lay right back down onto the mat in a constructive rest. Oof, and just notice anything here. Like for me, I felt such a longer, I almost feel taller. Let that settle, let that marinate. Good, now pick up both knees, hug them into the chest. Try to keep your low back down a little bit. But if your low back lifts up naturally, that's okay. Usually we do try to strain, or not strain, but like keep the low back engaged to the mat and then try to get the knees close that way. But that's more targeting the kind of the psoas and hip area. Go ahead and let your back lift or your pelvis lift if it does. And give those knees a squeeze. So here you just want to try to relax everything as you squeeze the knees into the chest. And keep your breath calm. And then make gentle circles on the ground with your spine. Make sure you switch your direction. Okay, great. Now grab your right knee and place your fingers around the right knee and send that left leg lazily but comfortably down to the mat, nice and straight. Okay, engage your abs here. So you don't want to feel this big arching of the low back. So now you do want to be a bit more pointed, engage the abs, tilt the pelvis in a bit. If the left knee needs to bend a bit for that to happen, then by all means. Just hug the right knee into the chest, give a nice tight squeeze. Okay, so now we're going to come into our reclined twist. So keep your left hand on the right knee. Send the right knee across the body towards the left. And pause. So try not to go as far as you can immediately. So this is the same thing as the twist when we were seating, and we were bringing the ribcage left to right. Here, now we're keeping the ribcage stable towards the ceiling, and we're just letting the pelvis twist towards the left. But we're still not trying to bring that low back into this picture. So you can even take your right hand and feel your low back. Does it feel really bulbous or very flexed? If it does, then you need to kind of move out of the twist a bit until it turns off. And then you can try coming back in and not letting it turn on. This is one of those moments where I really wish I was teaching in a studio so I could actually come by and help. Okay, so keep your right shoulder onto the mat, turn your head towards the right, settle in. Again, a very exploratory pose, so you can decide to hold that right knee further up and actually put a little bit of pressure on it with your left hand to kind of bring it towards the chest, but also down towards the floor, if that makes any sense. And that'll really help the external right hip get a decent flex. And it's also compressing the internal hip. You can also decide to just let go of the right knee. You can bring the right foot all the way onto the mat if that feels better, or you can let it float on top of the right thigh, whatever, or the left thigh, whatever you need. We'll be here for a few minutes. Yeah, about 2. And we're going to go ahead and invite you to just be open to the experience of your body showing you what it needs in terms of intake. Keep that mild active breathing. And then very slowly come back to constructive rest. So both feet onto the mat, knees bent. And pause right there. And articulate this experience. So how well can you describe what you're feeling? Where it is, what the sensations are like. Such as for me, on the right glute and the right side of the body and the right side of my stomach all feels a bit cool. And my left side feels a bit dense. That doesn't mean it has to be the same for you. Some people experience an opening and an elongation as a warm feeling or a tingly feeling. It's just very important that you name it for yourself so you can articulate it for yourself. And then pick up the left knee and we'll move on to this side. Hug the left knee into the chest, give a nice tight squeeze. Send the right leg out down to the mat. Let the right knee bend if it needs to bend. I'm more interested in that low back being relaxed and not arched or flexed. Send some breath into whatever you're feeling in that left hip area. And then slowly come into your twist. Keep the right hand on the left knee. Send that knee across the body towards the right. And remember, as that pelvis lifts and turns, that back should be very lazy. And then eventually you might feel the pull to turn your head to the left side. And play with it. Decide where you want to go. seeking the act of surrender. So if you feel specific tightness in an area, send your breath there. And what that means is that can you feel on the inhale that that area kind of opens a bit more, and it might be a bit more information coming back at you? And the exhale, can you let that area just kind of go, it's all right, I'm gonna chill out a bit more. So we often talk about, at least in modern discourse, about digestion as these things that you eat, which is very important to be aware of what you're taking to serve the body. But from an embodied health perspective, the entire system is the entire system, and everything is interconnected. There is no separation between mind and body. There's no separation between physical and emotional and spiritual. They all interweave. And sometimes, and you know this, we eat for reasons other than food. So something that I like to bring up that really rings true for me is that I don't just drink coffee for energy. I drink coffee for optimism. I feel hopeful. I feel excited. I feel optimistic. And that's okay. Food should be celebrated. But there's a difference between celebrating what you're eating and what you're doing for the joy of it versus it masking something else. So if anything shows up about what, why, how, when, in terms of digestion and gut health, let it show up. And let it be. So while I definitely drink coffee sometimes when I'm not feeling good about myself, because after coffee I do feel good, and it becomes more of a self-esteem machine than just, something that's nice to do in the morning. It's not something I'm going to judge myself for. I'm not going to expect myself to change it tomorrow. I'm just going to let the awareness do its work for me. And then maybe sometimes I won't drink as much coffee. Okay, very slowly unwind. Come into constructive rest. Notice where you can sense that in your body. Let it marinate. And then we'll spend just about a minute in Shavasana. Both legs out nice and long. Let go of the breath. No more active breathing of any kind. Let the homeostatic system do its work for you. And just feel good. Okay, before we come out of this, just take 3 breaths and press save on all that happened, on your sensations, anything that showed up, or just permission that you can feel this way whenever you want to. You don't need a YouTube video. You don't need anything to feel this way. And slowly make your way to a cross-legged seated position towards the front. Maybe you come through laying on your side for a minute. Just take your time into a cross-legged seated position. Maybe you can keep your eyes closed throughout that time. When you can, bring your hands to prayer. Let's do 2 breaths together. Inhale through the nose. And a nice sigh it out. One more. Inhale your thumbs up to your third eye. Let your chest rise. And exhale, bow. Namaste. All right. Thank you very much for coming to the Restorative Flow class. Just to give you a couple more things about digestion, and our gut is arguably an extension of our brain, just like our eyes. So the foods we eat and the things that we crave, they're not just foods we eat and things that we crave. They solicit how we respond to the world, and they solicit how we move in this world. When you look at your survival is so linked to the food that you're intaking and the things that you're physically imbibing, you begin to realize how massively important food is. Another part of that, though, is our emotional state really decides what we eat, as well as the nutrients that we even take out of food, which is known as bioavailability. Um, like a more excited state, we can kind of get rid of the food more quickly, or we can hold on to adipose tissue, which is fat tissue, because the cortisol in the system kind of feels like we're in a fight or flight. And so if we're afraid and we're in fight or flight, the body kind of wants to hold on to energy stores because it's kind of coded fight or flight with lack of survival and lack of food. So just be aware of that, and not be aware, but think about those ideas of how our whole emotional state is linked to food and how food is linked to our emotional state. They're so interwoven. And if you are looking to make some changes, a great way to start is just being aware of it, not judging yourself, not trying to make changes, but rather just simply being aware of the relationship to food and food's relationship to our emotions. And then sometimes the changes will just kind of start happening on their own. Okay, thank you very much for coming. And in ending, these are all donation-based classes. So if you'd like to donate, that'd be great. If you can't donate, that's absolutely fine as well. You can also comment, like, share, do all those social media things. Ideally, you would share this with somebody who would need it. That's more what this is about anyway. So yeah, thank you very much for coming. Ooh. And try to move slowly, because I move fast and it didn't feel good.